Hello and welcome to 7 Habits of Highly Effective Classroom Management, the Pseudo Covey approach. For this presentation of effective classroom management, the key task was to identify a number of possible topics to be incorporated into its content: participation, performance, discipline, policies, teaching styles, etc., etc. While the list could seemingly be infinite, we understood that the presentation time had to be finite and the scope needed to be reined in. So we refocused our efforts to develop a more cogent approach while still addressing the more significant items. Our hook was creating a linkage to the populist wisdom of Robert Fulghum's "All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten," mixed with the sound principles of Stephen Covey. Covey's powerful and resonant 7 habits lend themselves surprisingly well to the context of effective classroom management. Our ad hoc partnership was a good experience, and we were very simpatico in rounding out each other's skills nicely. Jeff Krantz brings years of teaching experience and tacit knowledge on the subject of classroom management and learning theories, and his guidance helped establish our way. He turned an awesome framework for the key points and narrative over to me, Andy Eline, and I added my input, the window dressing for the visuals, and away we go with what we think is a pretty great show. Do you fondly recall kindergarten? It was, after all, the basis for all your classroom learning. Admit it. Go ahead, admit it. Everything you ever really needed to know you learned in kindergarten. Okay, maybe not everything, but it sure helps set the stage for later life. Hopefully, the precocious youth from this cartoon hasn't grown up to be a problematic student haunting and heckling everyone's class. What do you think? Can an effectively managed classroom do anything to improve Tommy Towhead's attitude and opinion of education? I sure hope and think so. In biology, evolution is the key to survival. In business, flexibility is the key to success. In education, student engagement is the key to effective classroom management. So we will travel this journey using, as a compass, the steps of management guru Stephen R. Covey. In 1989, Mr. Covey published the internationally recognized book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Several adaptations followed, including a version for teens. So here we take some creative liberty to adapt his work to the classroom. Admittedly, there's a lot going on here in this slide, but we'll be making sense of it all by breaking things down neatly and discreetly in what follows to show you how Covey's principles apply to effective classroom tasks and behaviors. Dependence. As faculty, we have such great expectations for our classrooms, to challenge minds, to mold ideas, to stimulate great thinking. Yet to accomplish these ideals, it is incumbent upon us to set the learning stage, and so it is with effective classroom management. It begins with us and is dependent upon us. Covey recognizes the state of dependence, relying on others, as the baseline from which effective individuals ascend. It's nice to be wanted and needed, to take care of people and have them rely on you, but it's even nicer to rise above the dependency situations. Habit 1. Be proactive. To be effective in the classroom, we must be proactive. We must carefully anticipate and reflect upon the learning outcomes wanted, then orchestrate our actions to achieve that which we want. Simple, right? The obvious first next step is the creation of a course-specific syllabus. While the syllabus provides us a means to address ideas mandated by the university, the syllabus also provides a mechanism for us as teachers to assert our wants as well. Those wants are grounded in expectations of self and expectations of students, one of which would include your posture on academic rigor. Here is the place, by words, to set the learning climate. You, as facilitator, have much to offer your students in the form of knowledge and experience. Do you want your students to interact with, contribute to, and perhaps challenge your perspective? If so, have you identified those expectations for your student? If not, how will you respond, react, and/or motivate students who are not so engaged? Are you conscious that your students can contribute as well? While you expect to give of yourself, your experience, and your knowledge, what do you expect your students to give? What will your students get from you? Is it what they want and need? Anticipate and account for these questions proactively. Set the stage so that each student is not just allowed, but empowered and encouraged to share. Give them room to share their talents, thoughts, and experiences too. Here are some tasks to be proactive. That was quite a list there, wasn't it? Exactly. Within the liberties afforded to you by the university, envision your successful learning classroom. What are your expectations as an instructor, as a teacher, and as a facilitator? You need always to be professional. You need not to be a friend to every student. You have responsibilities according to the faculty handbook and academic bulletin. Achieve those, for those are part of your accountability. What are your expectations of the individual students? Attendance, participation, preparation? What likely events may arise in class? Cell phones, excuses, emergencies? Can you anticipate and plan for those? Our focus here at Franklin is learner-centered. Have you constructed the syllabus with that focus in mind? As such, the syllabus should read less like a contractual agreement and more like a clear vision statement. It should be a pact which defines the instructor and student's mutual stake toward the goal of meeting obligations and achieving success. Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. It has been said that if you do not know where you are going, any road will take you there. In the classroom, we must have much to accomplish and precious little time to do so. We have reviewed the curriculum, we have reviewed the syllabus, and we have prepared for this class. So where must we be by the end of this class? Knowing the end point, we will prioritize our time, our resources, and our learning activities to assure that we accomplish what we must in an organized manner. But our students are not to be talked to. Rather, the students are to be engaged with. Our classroom management plan must allow for discussion of ideas, interactions with and between students, theoretical and practical applications of learning, as well as transitions from last week and to next week's learning outcomes. Learning then becomes more like a building process, like construction, cognitive construction. Class must be managed to accomplish this, but it also must be managed to engage as well. In a pragmatic sense, learning requires or results in a changed student, whether the change is in thought, word, or deed. Rhetorically, what change is sought? What end is in mind? Begin with the end in mind tasks. The syllabus provides the game plan for the entire course to get to that end. Knowing where you want to go doesn't always mean you'll end up magically where you need to be, and that after 6 weeks your students will automatically come out transformed by sheer power of will. Plan for the results, sure, but more importantly, you need to plan for every class as well. One challenge for every class is to achieve that learning climate which is desired by you and sought by the students, and its corollary is making progress towards the goal state. Seek to maximize a classroom where you and the students are actively engaged, where students are encouraged to participate in a constructive, proactive manner without fear of disrespect or discrimination. Do you achieve such a learning climate? Does the context of this class build upon previous learning? Is it supported by the readings and assignments? Are their teachings pragmatic and applicable? Help students connect this material to past and future learnings. Your respect for each student and their success in learning requires sensitivity and consideration for students with special needs or requiring certain accommodations. Take the time and attention needed to address the needs of all students. Work with each student within his or her regard, as they too want to be successful, and they can and will be with your help. Habit 3. Put first things first. The focus of our third milestone is priority. Like the oft-stated maxim that the journey of 1,000 steps begins with the first, our journey in the classroom begins each night with a clear plan. We know what needs to be accomplished, and we know the plan to do so. There's lots we don't and cannot know. Many factors can't be predetermined, such as student participation, student questions, and student understanding. Some activities click, others flop. Planned discussions can be the same. Current events can happen which are relevant to class. Capitalizing on such timely connections and what works should always be a priority. As focus changes, so should priorities. We need to move quickly and smoothly to plan B when need be. Remember, the plan is not the priority. Rather, student learning and engagement is the priority. Put first things first tasks. Your plan of events for each class should never be a unilateral series of thou shalt directives. A class plan is, at best, a script, which is subject to a host of variables. Allow room for improvisation. Let your actors act. While you understand there are accomplishments needed each class, student engagement in the plan is fundamental. Questions about assignments, due dates, expectations will arise, even with the best written syllabus. Some dialogue and analysis may be required to discern how many students are disaffected or unable to follow the course directives. Just like you or I, community and personal events impact the students and their time. On one hand, current events can be an excellent fodder for pragmatic class discussions. Regardless of the distractions, the disruptions, and the changes, putting the students learning first is the priority for the teacher. Independence. As students learn and accept the expectations of you and of them, the class environment moves from dependence on you toward one of independence. All players interact with a conscious deference of the rules, the standards, the behaviors, the respect, and the freedom to engage with civility and non-discrimination. Students understand that they can, should, and will contribute to their learning environment. Your class takes on a life of its own in a good way, and you're along for the ride and learning too. Covey places this independence state above dependence, and it's a better place to be, but there's still work to be done and a higher level to which one can aspire. Habit 4. Think win-win. As the class environment moves towards independence, the students transition from being recipients of teacher-based knowledge to shepherds of the learning and knowledge, sharing and exchanging for mutual benefit and personal growth grows. You're in win-win territory now. The classroom moves from the teacher's domain to a shared community, a community of learners. Go Team Franklin. Yes, the faculty may, at times, teach more than they learn, but learning reflects mutual respect for the students' contributions. Learning and teaching become mutual and concurrent events. Synergy takes root next. Think win-win tasks. While the climate can be established by the syllabus and reinforced frequently by the faculty, the students' win really equates to building cognitive schema. It is these cognitive and perceptual structures by which the student has the means to be engaged in a meaningful way, resulting in truly lasting, impactful learning. Such structures are built as the student links data elements into useful information. Students process these pieces in different ways. Howard Gardner's opinion that there are multiple intelligences by which students process and make sense of this information. Some read to grasp and understand, some manipulate or talk to process, some use diagrams and charts. Regardless, the classroom should always appeal to these multiple intelligences via varied assignments, activities, and discussions that appeal and connect in verbal, written, and visual ways. Likewise, the class should provide a nurturing environment where contributions, postures, and opinions are welcomed in the context of learning and mutual respect. Students expect and crave feedback from the faculty. Such feedback should be timely and constructive. Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then be understood. While it may seem like an ancient proverb, here is a maxim of truth. To answer a question, one must understand the question. To teach the subject, one must understand the subject. That's what Habit 5 is all about. To reach the student who is demographically different from you sometimes requires that you take a moment to listen more intently and work to find a common ground of understanding. Focus not singularly on the words used, but also on the intention, the nonverbal clues, the context, and its importance to that student. Don't let pedantic semantics get in the way of understanding. You say tomato, I say red fruit that is treated more like a vegetable. Most everyone likes them on pizza. Some people like to throw them at other consensually willing people for fun. Find the connections and work through the terminology barriers. Attempting to clarify questions and meanings, sometimes even entirely reframing the scope of a question at hand, perhaps more than once, may be in order. These efforts dignify the question along with the student who asked. Answer to the best of your ability based on what the student seeks to know. Elicit feedback and respond appropriately. Reduce confusion and strive for clarity. Seek first to understand, then be understood. Seek first to understand, then be understood tasks. In a learner-centered environment, the teacher is not the sole source of knowledge. One way to guarantee this is by using a number of learning activities. This appeals to Howard Gardner's premise, but it makes the class or the week a little more appealing due to the diverse nature of such activities. Some students may be comfortable with one activity over another, but each has his or her own strengths, and each has his or her own challenges. The fundamental premise behind all education activities is learning. These are not intended to embarrass anyone or make anyone uncomfortable. Various classroom activities and tasks may stretch students in their approach to learning, but they are premised on what it means to learn, to assess the situation, and perhaps apply concepts. Sometimes they are really just intended for some classroom levity and some comic relief. In my classroom climate, I want to have fun with my students. Rare is the person who doesn't appreciate good-natured humor and the opportunity to laugh. Habit 6. Synergize. In math, we are all taught that 2 plus 2 equals 4, but when we use teams effectively, we bring together cross-functional folks with the intent that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That's synergy, plain and simple. Basically, we can accomplish more when we work together than we can as diverse individuals. It occurs in the classroom when it hits its full stride and reaches its potential for heightened intellectual focus. Here the students, working in teams and with other students, share, learn, and grow many times over. The learning dynamic is not a singular transaction from teacher down to student. It also takes the form of student to student, group to group, person to person, even from student back to teacher. Score 1 for everyone involved and fist bumps all around right then and there. The classroom environment is energized. It is enlightened. It seemingly lives and breathes learning, all for one and one for all. The desired learning community has been achieved and perhaps exceeded. The atmosphere is exciting, the people energized as real learning is taking place. Minds are challenged, thinking stimulated, greater cognitive structures are being built. Synergize tasks. Synergizing is a great habit, no doubt. This is when, as an instructor, you can say that the learning climate is truly successful and truly engaging. You can say, my students have the tools and perhaps even the motivation to look beyond this class and these assignments. Recall the wisdom of Bloom's taxonomy. How wondrous would it be to foster higher motivated learners? How magnificent would it be to have a seat in the classroom full of highly motivated students? think what could be accomplished. We could explore extensions of knowledge and new applications, some great new pragmatic ideas. We could better transition from next week's outcomes and perhaps those for the next course. We could more earnestly explore interdisciplinary approaches. We can better understand the forces and players impacting on current events, synergy. Here the mental energy of students is moving engagement forward. We're done. We've won. Game over, right? Not quite yet. Interdependence. The focus of the classroom has moved beyond the level of independence. We have advanced to interdependence as the learning oozes from not only one person, but from each person in magnificent and wondrous cascades. Civility and mutual respect embolden thinking, discussions, and great ideas. The learning has moved beyond that which is merely required to that which stretches and expands those cognitive structures. Questions get deeper, more complex. They begin with what if, how come, and will we ever, and answers only spur new and more intriguing questions. Complacency is minimized here as we begin to explore the challenges which remain. This elevated state is the pinnacle of Covey's hierarchy of habits, with only one encircling habit that wraps up the whole wheel. That habit is to sharpen the saw. Habit 7 is a challenging, ongoing, and iterative process. We have left a mark. We have fostered change. Our classroom starts as a dependent entity as the teacher needs to initiate the course and does so alone but for his 7 habits. As we garnered student support, trust, and interaction, we move beyond their sole dependence as our initiatives to teach and learn grow. We pass into a more student-centered model of independence. In this mindset, faculty and students share in the learning and teaching to meet our respective expectations. With time and experience, our learning community evolves into one of interdependence as we each become vital contributors to assured learning outcomes in our collective learning community. 2 + 2 = pizzas for everyone. We are greater than the sum of our parts. Sharpening the saw challenges us to avoid resting on our laurels and succumbing to self-satisfaction. There's much to learn, yet much to teach. For you, as a faculty member, there are requisite needs for continued self-development, lifelong learning, education, and renewal. The 4 facets of you which need attention, the physical you, the social-emotional you, the mental you, and the spiritual you. Each of those aspects needs to be shaped, polished, and renewed to maintain your teaching as a crisped, enlightened, and focused individual. Your students will recognize this as well. Sharpening the saw tasks. Saw Sharpening 101. Keep yourself sharp. It is so easy to become complacent. You had a good class once, a good course once, a good student once. If you allow yourself to become complacent, your students will read that in a heartbeat. Think about your own classroom experiences. Were all of your teachers motivated to teach or challenged to improve their teaching? Which teachers do you recall? Think about if they challenged you to learn or if they challenged you to improve. It's not likely that all did both, and you know that. Just as it was apparent to you, it will be evident to your students, and it will undermine your classroom climate. While you might not be aware of all the advances and dynamics to your chosen field, you must make a conscious and continuous effort to learn, and you must maintain awareness about yourself as a person as well. Your effectiveness and right to lead a classroom requires it. A wise person knows that they're not the smartest person out there, which makes them seek new information in order for them to learn and grow. Patrick Bet David. So the trip from being a teacher stuck in dependence mode to being an enlightened instructor basking on a higher plane of interdependence is quick and easy, especially now that you've got the golden magic compass, right? If only. This quick and tidy presentation is not to suggest that effective classroom management will occur starting at Class 1 and every class thereafter just because you know and follow the habits of a man named Covey. Rather, effective classroom management is, in and of itself, a learning journey. Consider the habits, though. Work their wisdom in as you can and where you can. Be proactive. Start with the plan for the class, the syllabus, the expectations. Begin with the end in mind. Engage with students from the first point of contact to the last. Put first things first and seek to understand first, then to be understood. Respect and honor your students as learners and as unique individuals with different life experiences. They want to learn and grow and share as they travel on their unique education journey. Think win, win, and synergize. Your response to each student at each point of contact can reinforce reasonable standards of effective classroom management and help them learn. And creating an environment built on trust and mutual understanding will result in a classroom that's bigger than the sum of its parts. And continually sharpen your saw so that you stay relative and effective and relevant. Remember, too, that teaching is not just a destination, but rather a journey. Figurative compasses like Covey's 7 habits can be applied along the way to help guide in a variety of situations. Recall also that the pragmatic proverb would suggest that a journey of 1,000 miles is at least that long. There will be distractions, orange cones, speed bumps, and detours. Like with other aspects of life, experience will help smooth out the rough edges. Enjoy teaching, please. It offers challenges, no doubt, but rewards as well. Please feel free to share this presentation and offer your comments, and thank you for your time.